Hi, welcome to my channel So Sketch. This is Ashley and today I am doing a speed painting, and it started off, it was going to be a Brusho painting, and it sort of became a mixed media painting after several mistakes that I made. And you know, every time I make a new piece of art, it's sort of just a lesson in the fact that I still have no idea what I'm doing because I don't have any training. I just watch YouTube videos, and that's kind of why I make YouTube videos, because it forces me to sit down and, you know, practice and try to get better. So what I'm doing here is I just have some Prismacolor pencils. These are the Scholar line. It's the one for students, and I'm just looking at a picture of a chameleon and drawing it out, and then I'm going to take it to my light board and trace it. And I thought this would be a good use of my materials because, again, I have all these materials, I never use them, so I grabbed the color pencils to do my sketch. And I usually sketch my watercolor paper, but it's so hard on it when you're someone like me who's working on your drawing skills, it tears the paper up. So here I have taken my light board and I have my sketch underneath my watercolor paper. And in a huge waste of time, I thought it would be a great idea to use my Inktense pencils to go ahead and do this sketch underneath, because my thinking was, well, the Inktense is permanent, so I'll go ahead and I'll do a sketch in my Inktense, and then I'll go ahead and dilute it and liquefy it, and then I'll blow it dry and it'll be set, and that way I won't lose my sketch when I do my Brusho later. I have never done any art with Brusho. I had only done my swatch board, and I didn't realize that the Brusho was just gonna obliterate my sketch. Like, my sketch was gone. So there were so many things that I did in this painting that were just such a waste of time, that just, like, you know, next time I won't do it. Like, next time I will just do a pencil sketch and I will sprinkle my Brusho, and then I will dry my Brusho, and then at that point I'll figure out if I want to watercolor over it, which is what I ended up doing. And later on I'll talk about another horrible mistake that I made that ended up being time consuming. But you know, the thing is that I got it finished and I'm happy with how it turned out. Again, like, I don't know, in my other videos I had talked about how I just have all these paintings. Oh, okay, so this is where I have the masking tape down. So all around that masking tape I have masking fluid. My theory behind this was, I'm not sure how this brush is going to work, so I'm going to, like, use my little paintbrush. I'm going to control where the colors go, and they're going to follow my little stripes, because as you can see I liquefied the Inktense, and you know, I'm not going to let this Brusho control me. Like, I'm on Brusho Fun Facebook, and you know, everyone talks about how it's difficult to control, and this was my first time doing it, so I was like, oh no, I got this figured out. I'm going to put masking fluid down, I'm going to put tape down, I'm going to sprinkle it just where I want it to go. This is going to be great, because the reason I got inspired to do this is Brusho has such a texture that it reminded me of the skin of a lizard or a chameleon. So I thought this is going to be so cool. It's like going to be instant skin texture, no work, like just sprinkle and spray and boom, I'll be good. So what happened is I got a little impatient and I decided to use my heat tool to dry the Brusho after I liquefied it. And I know that when you apply heat to, you know, misc it or frisk it or masking fluid, whatever you want to call it, it basically glues it to your watercolor paper, which is what I did. I did the heat tool, like, oh, look at that. There goes my Inktense sketch. Glad I spent all that time, you know, coloring it in and liquefying and drying. I could have took like 20 minutes off of this time. So this is where I'm patting it away, just like, oh my gosh, I really messed up here. But, you know, like I said, it all works out in the end. So I noticed a couple spots that need a little bit more. So, okay, this is when I got out the black gouache, because when I pulled up my masking fluid, my paper was destroyed. It was just destroyed. And so I'm like, okay, I can either throw this away and just sort of give up, or I'm going to try to make it work. So I thought, you know what? The paper already has texture. I'm going to go ahead and just go with it. I'm going to just enhance the texture. So I put down some black gouache because I thought, you know, and it's watery, so you could just use watercolor, but I was trying to go for some opacity, so I went ahead and used the black gouache. And it is pretty liquid at this point. But I sprinkled some Brusho on the wet gouache, and then I spritzed it and dabbed it, and I thought, hey, this looks pretty cool. At this point I was like, okay, I'm not as concerned. I feel like I can save it. So I got out my Prima. This is the classics. I also was working, I originally grabbed the tropicals, but then I actually preferred the phthalo blue color and the Decadent Pies, so I packed up the tropicals and grabbed the Decadent Pies. So if you see me reaching off camera, it's because I am dipping into the Decadent Pies, mostly just to get like the phthalo blue, and I think I had grabbed one of the purples from the tropicals before I sort of was like, this palette isn't as useful. So you could just liquefy your Brusho and paint with your Brusho, but I just didn't want to. Like, watercolor is so convenient, it's, you know, right there in the pan. So I thought, you know, instead of liquefying the Brusho and having to like do that extra step, you know, at this point it was not going to be a true Brusho painting. I had gouache, I had ink tints, I had Brusho. I was like, let's throw some watercolors on it, you know, who cares, it's my painting, you know, I'm gonna stick it in a drawer. Like I was saying, this one I actually don't want to stick in a drawer. Like, it's turned out so cute, and I like my little chameleon, but I don't know what to do with him or where to put him. So right now he's still just sitting on my art desk. So this is where I'm basically re-putting back in his body parts, because that ink tint sketch that I spent all that time on is gone. And I even realized one of his little like claw hands I had sort of lost. Like, it's on right now, I'm painting in his stick, and I sort of lost the top part of his claw hand. So even after I filmed this, I went back with my Pentel sketch pen because I didn't want to get out my black watercolor again, and just drew the rest of his hand in. So this whole thing was just kind of a mess from the beginning to end, but I had fun with it. And I watch Lindsay the Frugal Crafter, and lately she's been doing just like a ton of mixed media. And you know, I'm not a fine artist, I'm not a professional artist. I don't know why I get it stuck in my head like, oh, my art, if I'm doing watercolor, it needs to just be watercolor, and I shouldn't use white, and I shouldn't use black. And because I'm not like entering this in a contest, like nobody cares if I'm just using watercolor or if I'm, you know, doing mixed media. And I feel like there's such a freeness with mixed media, because if things are going badly, there's usually a way out of it, like with either gouache or colored pencils or acrylics, or, you know, I feel like if I hadn't gone in the direction of using my other supplies, this just, you know, would not have turned out. So I'm sort of just putting the stripes back in and redoing his little tail. So I basically, let's see, did the original sketch, I did the tracing, and then I had to so I had to draw this thing 3 times, because, you know, I'm learning, and, you know, that's why I put this thing up there, because it's for me to learn, and, you know, nobody watches it, but if you did watch it, you could be like, oh, okay. So if I do Brusho, just get a sketch in there and then know that it's gonna get obliterated. There's no chance that you're gonna see that, because that stuff is so pigmented, and I feel like I barely put any on there, and it does create such a cool texture though. Like, I'm really excited about it. I want to keep using it in different projects, but I have to figure out what to do. It's hard for me to find inspiration sometimes, and that's partly why I'm doing this, because once a week I make myself sit down and paint, and I always have so much fun. Like, it's such a fun part of my day. I'm also, my husband and I are working out and losing weight and stuff, and so sometimes I don't want to make time to paint because it's sitting, like, you know, I sat for over an hour to do this. Like, you know, we sped it up so it's only, you know, 11 minutes long, but this took me over an hour to do, and I feel guilty sometimes just sitting for an hour. I'm like, oh, I should be working out, or you know, doing something that isn't just sitting. But, you know, art is so relaxing, and I need that time sometimes just to sit there and focus on that, because I don't know if you guys have heard of that drawing on the right side of the brain, but there's, you know, something really magical that happens when you are doing art, where you sort of just lose track of time. Also happens if you're playing The Sims. That used to happen to me. I don't play The Sims anymore because it's just not healthy. Like, I would sit there and it would just be like, oh my God, 3 hours has passed. What is wrong with my life? This is why now I have to lose weight, because I had hobbies like playing The Sims, and that's my cat Lola. She's basically been in and out of this video for the whole time, because as soon as I sit down at my table, she is just like, okay, I want a lot of attention. And this cat is a cat who, when she's hungry, she's your best friend, and we let them go outside for supervised visits like 10 minutes a day just because she wants to do that. So whenever it's time to go outside or time to eat, she's your best friend, but the rest of the time she's very independent. As soon as I get out my art supplies, she is screaming and crying. She'll try to crawl up my leg. She just wants to be on my table. So she's very, very curious whenever I'm working up there. It's a phenomenon that happens every single time, but yeah, she pretty much was involved from the drawing stage to the finishing stages, so she helps me out a little bit and usually walks on my painting at some point. So I have a lot of paw print paintings. But I'm getting kind of to the end. I had I went ahead and used my black watercolor to trace, and now I'm using some white watercolor to highlight. Later on I'll sort of decide that I don't think those highlights are intense enough, because white watercolor just isn't very opaque, and I didn't already put my gouache away. I kind of like, I'm OCD about putting my materials away while I'm working, which also adds to how long it takes me to do everything. So I was like, not getting the gouache out, getting the gel pen. That's the Uniball white gel pen. It's like the best gel pen. And, you know, as somebody who is an amateur and has no idea what they're doing, I need the best gel pen. You know, I need all the help I can get. So I'm just doing all kinds of highlights and stuff. And there goes my name and goodbye. And that's what it looks like finished. That is no filter. It really is that contrasted. So I'm really excited with how it turned out, considering you can see kind of the tears in the paper from the masking fluid. So thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye.